Welcome to Experiments in Leadership. I am Sonu Bhasin. Experiments in Leadership is a space where industry leaders share their thoughts and stories about various facets of leadership. As always, before I introduce my guest today, I do want to urge all of you to subscribe to my channel. It has some great conversations with some really super people, and it is free to you. So go for it, guys and gals. So back to today's guest. Now, he is someone who has worked with all kinds of leaders. And just to give you a couple of examples, Ratan Tata and Barack Obama, they have both been his bosses. Wow. But let us start at the beginning. Arun M. Kumar, our guest today, is the TAS batch of 73, and he started working with Ratan Tata at Nelco. He then went on to do his MBA in the US and worked at several places before spending many years at KPMG there as a partner and a member of their global board. He then served in President Obama's administration as an Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Global Markets and Director General of the US and Foreign Commercial Services. His connection with consulting did not end as he came back to KPMG India as their chairman and CEO and served as a member on the KPMG Global Board. And currently, Arun is the managing partner at Celesta Capital and is a member on the board of Dr. Reddy's Lab. Welcome to Experiments in Leadership, Arun.
Thank you, Sonu. Great to be with you.
Thank you. So the first and obvious question, it's a no-brainer. How are the two leaders, Ratan Tata and Barack Obama, similar, and how are they different?
Now, that is a very interesting question. I'd say there are some, and I had not thought about this before.
Yeah.
But, they are each unto themselves.
Yeah.
I would say, in some sense, probably introverted more than extroverted.
Both of them.
I think so. I think
even President Obama.
President Obama likes to spend his evenings with his family.
Right.
You know that he is very. He can appeal to a lot of people, but there is a certain reserve. There's almost a little bit of a kingly reserve about him, from my observation. Now, mind you, I didn't work with him on a daily basis, but in the situations that I saw him, I felt that certain, almost like a kingly reserve.
Right.
But he could connect across. He had a tremendous sense of humor. And I think the sense of humor is one that I would say Mr. Tata also has.
Right.
Different kinds of humor.
Yeah.
But certainly both have, in their own way, a tremendous sense of humor. I think both think commonalities. I think both of them think very big. They are willing to take on very large objectives, things that a lot of people might be skeptical about. When you talk about Obamacare, there was an uphill task. People had failed at doing that before. But you forward and think about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, again, an uphill task. But he delivered on that. Of course, that was pulled down by his successor.
We won't go into that.
No, we won't. But Mr. Tata was similarly always thinking very much out of the box. He's very curious. Both of them have a great sense of curiosity in slightly different ways. Mr. Tata was trained as an engineer, but he's also an aesthete. So he combines tremendous aesthetic sensibilities. Barack Obama is a writer. Well before he became president, he published his book, Dreams of My Father, which is so well written. So they both have, I would say, the sensibilities that are not just technical. They have kind of humanistic sensibilities, again, in different ways. So it's,
that way they're similar. And, before we go about the differences, I must tell you, I just love that smile on your face when you talk of your ex-bosses. Clearly, you are very fond of them and you have really great memories about them.
I have great memories. I worked very closely with Mr. Tata. With President Obama, he was way up there, and but the interactions that I had the privilege to have were just very, very memorable.
I'm sure we can do a whole episode on only that.
Probably could, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And without letting go of any state secrets or classified information. Though if you talk about that, it'll make the episode even more interesting. But we won't do that. But how are they different, or are they different in any way?
Well, I think President Obama likes to be with people. He's
Mhm.
a good politician. He gets energy by
Mhm.
being in crowds with people, although it's a different kind of energy that he gets, which political leaders do.
Yeah.
I never thought Mr. Tata was a person who, got energy by working the crowd.
Not at all.
So, so that's very different.
That's different. Yet both of them have been successful and they have a huge fan following. So clearly, it doesn't matter if you're an introvert, which is quite counterintuitive, but you can be an excellent leader, which is, I mean, normally when you think of leaders, you think of extroverts, people's people, and always talking, always being with people. But here are two great examples where you are a great leader.
And they both also point to the cerebral aspect of leadership. I think
Mm-hmm.
in this complex world, I
Mm-hmm.
think the cerebral aspect is very important.
Is important.
So
Yeah.
being able to think deep,
Yeah.
to look around the corners,
Yeah.
that is an important aspect of leadership, probably more today than ever before.
Yeah.
The way things are changing,
Yeah.
knowledge is created,
Yeah.
the way opportunities come and go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's come back to the main topic of the conversation, experiments in leadership. Now, you came back to India at KPMG in 2017, and from what we read in the press, these were turbulent times for the firm. A, why did you want to come back if the firm was going through such turbulence? And B, how did you deal with it?
Well, first, why did I come back? Actually, in December
Yeah.
2016, I had no idea that I might be coming back to India after practically 39 years away. I had no idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so at that point, I had really no idea. And in fact, I was on a path to doing very different things.
Right.
I knew I would be finishing up the administration the second week of January 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Then the global chairman of KPMG came to me and said, can you step in for us and and do a stint in India?
Yeah.
And that I was very interested in that for two reasons. One is I knew the people at KPMG India, and they were very, very smart people, very talented people. So I had worked with them for many years, although I was there. So I just knew the people were great. Second, I knew, again, my stint in the administration helped me. I could see that the opportunities in India were going to be very significant. So I had a global remit in the administration, and my teams were in 78 countries and all the 50 states. So I had my pulse on what was going on where. And when I looked at where would the future growth come from, it was clear that India had to be right at the top.
Yeah.
The Southeast Asian countries, ASEAN countries, were another growth area.
Yeah.
A little bit further down would be Africa. So that's how I saw it. So I knew from a macro level as well that India was going to be was full of opportunity. And then when I was in the administration, I spent a fair amount of time on India, and I was part of President Obama's delegation to it. Came in January 2015. I worked closely the prior year in essentially changing the tenor of the relationship. So I met the business leaders, the government leaders in India. So I thought, the talent of the people in KPMG India and the opportunities for an opportunity to make an impact, to do something. That's how I decided, much against the wishes of my sons and
Dad, what are you doing? Why are you going back?
Just when you can babysit for us, you're taking off.
My babysitter is going. I'll have to pay for babysitting. Right. Okay. So then, so before we go into the situation and how you dealt with it, a little bit more about you and your this thing as a leader. Now, you just said that you had teams in 78 countries and you had a global remit when you were part of the Obama administration. And here you had to come back and focus only on one country, and that too one narrow KPMG India. Did it did you have a sense of dissonance about it? Like I was there and now I'm here.
I'm certainly serving in that role in the US administration was an opportunity of a lifetime. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
But in India, there are tens of thousands of people at KPMG. It's a large organization with lots of clients working at the highest levels of
Yeah.
in government. So it's a different set of, it was equally interesting, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And a lot of the experiences that one gathers over life, keeps having applicability as you go forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you came into this firm that was going through a crisis. How?
Yeah, I don't want, it was going through some turbulence. Let's not call it
Okay.
a crisis. It was going through some turbulence.
Okay.
And, what I found was that they said very talented people, but, sometimes some habits fall in. It had become a very siloed organization.
Right.
Like hundreds of many P&Ls, and each
Hmm.
P&L means a little satrapy. So
Hmm.
little satrapies, each one looks for small wins for themselves.
Right.
Sometimes internal competition. They're all good people, good talented people, but
Yeah.
structurally there were issues of internal competition. And then things like you would not jointly go to a client, but each one would do their own.
Right.
Sometimes you would not want to share clients. The kinds of things that are very natural when you have an organization that's organized in a certain way and people are rewarded in a certain way.
Right.
So such organizations also become political because they're looking out for their piece and trying to keep it away from the other piece.
Yeah.
I heard this wonderful statement called a rumal. So if you have a client, you put a rumal, a handkerchief on the client, nobody else can come there.
Nobody else can touch it. And over my dead body, kind of. No,
I learned
yeah.
a lot of the lore.
Yeah.
But it's not major and big deals because these are habits that sometimes happen.
Yeah.
And so my goal was, how do I change all that? How do I unify it into one firm as opposed to 250 units?
Yeah.
But that was my highest priority.
Yeah.
And how to do that? You have to do that with some meaning. You do that around a purpose. Why are you doing something? Around a vision of where you're trying to go. And, so I felt culture was going to be my number one priority. And I felt it was also important, given the country, given the opportunities, that a firm like ours should be consequential. What you do should matter. So my buzzwords
relevant
should be make a difference. I mean, relevant is probably the lowest level of that.
Okay.
Consequential is where you actually have made a difference.
Right.
But yes, certainly relevant, but a bit more stronger relevance.
Yeah.
Relevance means you're keeping up. Consequential means you're driving some change.
You're making a difference. Yeah.
Right. So my view was really, how do we think about culture and consequence? So these were my big thing and goals. And I felt that if you could get the culture right, and Peter Drucker has said this decades ago, everything else kind of falls in place. So that was my main focus. And how I went about it is multiple prongs to it, but I'll let you lead the.
So I would actually, because when now we read in the press or we talk to people, clearly your stint there is an experiment in leadership that clearly worked. I mean, KPMG then and KPMG today is vastly different. So when you look back, what, in your opinion, made that experiment or a series of experiments succeed?
So I'd say for me, my first approach was to listen, just really listen and to be inclusive. So I felt that I should listen and people should know because I'm genuinely listening and ready to respond. Yeah. So that was one. Second, when you when people feel that you are listening, then people are willing to talk. Otherwise, in any corporate organization, people are not free to express their views. What will my boss think? Or what will so think? So people are constrained. And that's the biggest issue. I mean, as you go higher in an organization, one of the biggest issues is that people don't tell you.
People don't tell you.
Like, yes, they tell you what they think you want to hear.
Right.
So I decided that I would just be very inclusive, listen to people at all levels, really literally have an open door. And I would respond to all emails, phone calls. I would make sure that I respond. And actually, the response is something I learned from Mr. Tata when I worked with him. And he had this rule that every letter that came to him would be responded to within 24 hours or 48 hours. And I was working for him, so I was often the one sending a response. And sometimes it might just be a holding response. It will come in a minute. And there would be a response. Letters would not come in that would not be responded to. So I've learned that, and I kind of have kept with that. And even today, I find that the busiest people are the people, the most responsive people are the people who are the busiest. It's kind of a contradiction. You rarely feel that, you feel busy people may not respond, but the truth is they do respond.
Yeah.
And I can name you the top people globally and in this country who are those kinds of people who will respond right away. So I decided that I would, and I've always been very responsive. I learned that from Mr. Tata, and I'm told that J.R.D. Tata was the same way. Every letter that went to him would be responded to. So really open door, listening, and along with that, it was important to be open to criticism. So this is a very important aspect that one as a leader, you have to be open to criticism. You have to be open to admitting weakness, mistakes, ignorance. You can always learn. I think that's really important, because if you don't, other people will not feel secure to speak up. People will not be able to say, I really don't know. They might make it up. So I think it's important for leaders to be vulnerable. It's very important. People should know that.
Seen as vulnerable. I think all leaders are vulnerable. They just hide it very well.
That's correct.
So if you are able to appear vulnerable, maybe people.
If you can accept your vulnerability.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's like people say, you're willing to accept that you can be wrong.
Yeah.
And you're willing, and you want to learn from it, because learning is going to be, at the end of the day, one of the very important aspects of every organization.
Right.
So that's one. So I thought that I would listen with openness, including openness to all kinds of criticism.
Yeah.
Second, I wanted to create a sense of ownership. It is not my organization or these 250 people who are. It's more like everybody's organization. I long ago heard from somebody whom I knew quite well that no one wants to polish someone else's monument.
Yeah, very deep as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we all have to shape and build and own the monument and feel pride in the monument. And so unless you're involved in providing inputs and shaping it, you're not going to be happy polishing it. So, and then teamwork was a very, very key element of people working together. Which I mentioned, we had all these silos. So I engaged an external firm. In fact, there's a wonderful author named Pat Lencioni, who wrote a series of books, but one is called The Advantage. Okay. But it's focused on teamwork, the nitty-gritty of how to make teams work together. So I got one of his guys from London to fly out here and spend time with our team to really allow us to become more of a team. Right. So that external intervention was important. And I committed that we would, within 100 days, refresh our strategy, which was a way to get everybody to pitch in and own it. Yeah. And so we came out with a strategy that had some big bets on enhancing our talent base, launching new offerings. It really set the momentum for the rest of my tenure. After that, we would refresh the strategy from time to time. But that first 100 days, we set the direction. But I wanted to, and as I said, since it has to be everybody's monument, we wanted to carry everybody along. Yeah. Also, it's important that inclusiveness must be accompanied by pushing forward. So sometimes, I have this analogy of a bus, where you need to get everybody on the bus. If you wait for every single person to get on the bus, it'll be a long time. So you need to get some key people on the bus. You need to start the engine and rev it up and start moving. Then once people see that it's about to move,
then a lot of people move in. Absolutely.
Right? So you have to do that. But then to get people to jump on the bus, they have to be clear, where is this bus going? What is the vision of the organization? Why is it going there? What is the purpose of the organization? People need to understand the vision and the purpose, and then get it up. So like vision and purpose and drive, all of this have to kind of come together, in my view. And that's what I try to do in my experiment. But also, sorry.
No, sorry. No, so I said clearly this was an experiment that worked, and I guess you must have tweaked things here and there to make it work. But now that you look back, or now when we see the organization, the firm, I think it's clearly a firm that has a purpose, that clearly knows where it's going, and it's in a good place. But since the conversation is also about an experiment in leadership that did not work, so was there an experiment in leadership that didn't work for you? And if yes, then would you like to talk about it?
No, I would say a lot of things worked. I said these are things that are multiple interventions. It's not really one silver bullet. When I talked about culture, culture also has elements of tone, how we behave. It's got elements of attitude, of energy. All these are elements of culture. So there are many, many different pieces that go into these changes. And so many things worked. I think collaboration worked, teamwork worked. So what did not work, I would say, was in some sense, some aspects of governance that I would have liked to have gone further. We made progress, but I don't think we made as much progress. And to give you a sense of what that is that in firms like ours, in the Big Four, we all have internal boards. So partners with the firm, you have an internal board. And so in some sense, everybody on the board reports into the CEO. So how can a board be independent? How can a board hold the CEO to account?
Right.
So you have to create a particular kind of culture, and you need to have the right kinds of individuals and the right atmosphere where people can speak up and do the right thing as board members. So I think a board has to challenge an organization. It should not manage an organization. It should challenge the organization the right way, should support the organization in the right way. It should have the right kind of accountability. So those are the things that a good board does. And it's very difficult for an internal board. So I tried to bring about some amount of engagement with outsiders. I had Ram Charan speak to a board.
Right.
As a guru on the topic. I brought in 2 equivalents of external board members who made a huge difference. So they became role models for others to follow, so they can show how a board member should raise the bar for management.
Right.
So those are the kinds of things that but I think that's an area where I think that we could have gone further. And I think one thing to remember is cultural change and transformation don't get done in 5 years. I signed up for 5 years. And it would actually take 10 years and more. It takes a few generations for these things to really take root. But I feel good that the firm is in a great place, and just keeps that momentum, and it'll go wonderfully.
Great. Super. So just one last question before we sign off. Are you still in touch with President Obama?
We're not recently now.
No. Okay.
I saw him when he came to India some years ago. That's been a while. And I've been mostly here. So he visited in, I think, 2018 or 17.
2018, I think, or 2019. One of those,
so the last time I saw him actually was in Delhi.
Good. No, so, thank you for your time. It's been a fascinating conversation. And somewhere in the near future, I think we'll have just one where you talk about, President Obama and the learnings that you and many of us can have from him, because he is an iconic leader, just like your other boss, Ratan Tata, was. So thank you. And viewers, we will keep having more conversations. So keep watching this space. Until then, bye-bye.